Hello, my name's Kerry Lewis and I'm a member of the MrBruff.com writing team. Today I'm going to talk about how to use the colon and semicolon in a list, and we're going to begin by reviewing how to use the colon in a simple list of bullet points or numbered points. The colon is like a trumpet announcing something important. For example, there are videos to explain the following sentences. Minor, compound, complex, etc. Put the colon where you would normally put a full stop at the end of a sentence. Let's look at another example. This time the listed items are in a sentence. I've bought some healthy fruit. Blueberries, blackberries and raspberries. Again, put the colon where we would normally have a full stop, and remember that the first part of the sentence is announcing something important. We don't need to have a semicolon in this sentence because it's a straightforward list and easy to understand. We need semicolons, though, to separate ideas when they're a little bit more complicated. When I read this sentence, I'd naturally pause for longer at the semicolon. There are many advantages to exercise. It improves your mental health, especially if you're suffering from stress. It helps you to lose weight as it burns off calories. And as you grow older, it keeps skills, such as your thinking skills, sharp. The semicolons help to organize the ideas into chunks or sections. And the main reason that we have semicolons in this sentence is because of all the commas. If we didn't have semicolons and we replaced each semicolon with a comma, it would become very, very confusing and difficult to understand. So the semicolons are really useful to help organize ideas into sections. Let's look now at some examples of how writers use semicolons and colons to organize their ideas. And the first is to mirror emotions. Frankenstein, the man who created the monster, is returning home because his brother's been murdered. I looked thoughtfully at the lake for a long time. The waters were still. All around was calm, and the snowy mountains, the palaces of nature, were not changed. The pace slows down after the colon when Frankenstein lists what he sees, and the punctuation draws attention to the beauty of the landscape and the effect that this has on his emotions. When he describes the calm water and the beautiful mountains, we see that the landscape has the power to calm his tormented mind, even if it's just for a short time. Now let's look at how items in a list can summarize events. Here, Frankenstein is thinking about how he created the monster 2 years ago. I kept thinking about the events that I'd been trying to forget. Everything leading up to the creation of the monster, its appearance at my bedside, its departure. By listing these events, we see that Frankenstein can't ignore them anymore. Sometimes you don't even need a colon to introduce items in a list, and this is because each idea is just as important as the next. Here, Dickens deliberately uses listing to overwhelm the reader. He describes a lack of law and order in London. As I read, note that I'm pausing for longer at the semicolons, and that helps to make the passage easier to understand, because the semicolons are organising the ideas into sections. Daring burglaries by armed men and highway robberies took place in London every night. Families were publicly warned not to leave the city unless they put their furniture in storage for extra security. A highwayman at night was a tradesman in the day, and when he was recognised and challenged by another tradesman whom he stopped, disguised as the captain, he shot him through the head and rode away. Each clause describes one example of the lack of law and order, and each example is just as important as the next. Dickens' use of listing therefore creates an overwhelming impression of how society has broken down. Finally, we're going to look at how you can use the colon and semicolon to create patterns when you're writing. The young Jane has been locked in a bedroom by her aunt. Her uncle, Mr. Reed, died in this room, which is called the Red Room, 9 years ago. Mr. Reed had been dead for 9 years. It was in this bedroom he breathed his last. Here he lay before he was buried. From here his coffin was carried by the undertaker's men. Bronte creates a pattern with her words. The words in red are to do with place. The Red Room. It was in this bedroom. Here. From here. The next word is about the dead uncle. He, and his coffin. And the next is a verb. Breathed, lay, was carried. This pattern of language is called parallelism, and it creates a rhythm. Bronte uses it to emphasize the child's imagination and to emphasize her rising panic. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you'd like to buy a copy of Mr. Bruff's Guide to Grammar, there's a link in the description below. In the meantime, please like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you in the next video.